The attic was thick with dust, motes dancing like tiny ghosts in the slanting beams of late afternoon light. Ada's fingers trembled as she brushed aside a loose plank beneath the floorboards, revealing a leather-bound book, brittle with age and heavy with the weight of forgotten years. The scent of must and time-worn parchment rose to meet her as she pried it free, the cover cracked and faded, embossed with a symbol she recognized from the family's old tales, the twisted lantern, the emblem of the Hollow River's curse. She settled into the cold wooden floor, the lantern's glow her sole companion, and opened the journal, the fragile pages whispering secrets. The ink had faded to a ghostly grey, but the words were still legible, penned in a meticulous hand that spoke of urgency and despair. The entries detailed the great flood that had swallowed the village generations ago, a cataclysm that had drowned souls and fractured lives. But buried within those lines was something darker, a pact made by her ancestors with forces beyond understanding, a bargain to bind the drowned spirits with lanterns, trapping their souls and containing the curse. Ada's breath hitched as she read of sacrifices made and broken promises, of a debt owed that stretched across centuries. Each lantern was more than a light. It was a prison, a tether holding restless souls in limbo. And the family, charged with returning these lanterns to the river annually, were bound to the curse by blood and obligation. A sudden shadow fell across the doorway. Elias's voice, rough and low, cut through the silence. "Ada, that's enough." Startled, she snapped the journal shut. Elias stepped inside, his eyes dark pools of worry and something deeper guilt. "There are things better left buried," he said, voice tight. "The more you dig, the more danger you bring upon us all." "But we need to know," Ada insisted, her resolve hardening. "If we don't understand the curse, how can we fight it?" Elias's jaw clenched. "Some knowledge comes at too high a price. You don't know what you're meddling with." Mara appeared at the foot of the stairs, fragile and pale, clutching a candle as if to steady herself against the mounting shadows. Her eyes, tired and haunted, rested on the journal. "Your father is right, Ada," she whispered. "That darkness has taken too much from us already." Ada felt the weight of their sorrow, the invisible chains of fear and loss that bound them all. Yet beneath it, a flicker of defiance stirred. The journal was a key, a way to unravel the curse and perhaps save them all. But the path it revealed was steeped in pain and sacrifice. Over the following days, Ada pored over the journal, tracing the family's tragic history. She learned of her great-grandfather, a man who had bargained with the drowned to save his village, but had doomed his bloodline in the process. The entries spoke of rituals performed beneath moonlit skies, of lanterns crafted from bones and whispered incantations meant to keep the restless dead at bay. But cracks in the story began to show. There were mentions of lanterns lost, of nights when the curse had surged beyond control, and of family members consumed by madness and despair. Ada's heart ached with the realization that the curse was not just an external threat, was woven into the very fabric of her family's existence. At night, the river's glow seemed to pulse with a malevolent life, the lanterns flickering in erratic rhythms as if warning or beckoning. Ada's dreams were haunted by water's cold embrace and drowned faces, their eyes imploring, accusing. She awoke each morning with a tightening in her chest, the journal's secrets weighing heavily on her mind. Elias grew more distant, his protective walls rising higher. Their conversations became terse, shadowed by unspoken fears. Mara's health declined, her once gentle presence now fragile and fading. The house seemed to close in on them, the atmosphere thick with impending doom. One evening, as the family gathered around the hearth, Ada broke the silence. We can't keep running from this. The journal shows that the curse started with us. It's our burden to end it. Elias's eyes, weary and guarded, met hers. And if we fail, if digging up the past only makes it worse. Ada's voice was steady, though her heart pounded. Then we fight, because if we don't, the river will claim us all. Outside, the river whispered its ancient song, the lanterns bobbing like restless stars on the water's surface, their cursed light flickering with a cold, unyielding glow. The secrets beneath the surface were no longer hidden, and the family stood on the edge of a dark and uncertain future. The kitchen was thick with the scent of damp wood and fading embers, the low hum of the river just audible beyond the thin walls of the old house. Elias stood by the doorway, arms folded, eyes narrowed as his brother Jeb paced restlessly across the creaking floorboards. The air between them crackled with unspoken grievances and years of resentment. "You still don't believe it," Elias said quietly, his voice tight but steady. "After everything, you still think it's all superstition." Jeb stopped mid-step, turning to face him with a weary shake of his head. "Elias, I've been away from this place long enough to see the world for what it is. The river's just water. Those lanterns, just old lights, nothing more, nothing more." Elias's voice rose, the years of burden pressing down on him. "They're the souls of the drowned Jeb, the curse that's bound our family since the flood. You think I want to believe in ghosts? I want to protect my family." Jeb's eyes flickered with something like pity, but his tone remained sharp. "Protect them from what? From stories. You're losing yourself to fear, Elias. It's tearing us apart." The tension in the room was suddenly broken by a soft cough from the far corner. Mara sat hunched in her chair, a pale figure wrapped in a threadbare shawl. Her hands trembled slightly as she clutched the fabric, eyes fixed on the flickering lantern above. Mara, Elias's voice softened as he turned to her, concern etching his features. "You need to rest." She managed a weak smile, but the fatigue in her eyes betrayed her. "I'm fine," she whispered, her voice fragile, just tired. Ada stood near the window, watching the exchange quietly. Her dark eyes reflected the lantern light, a mixture of frustration and fear swirling within them. She had grown increasingly restless these past days, the mysteries of the river and the missing lanterns gnawing at her. Later that afternoon, Ada found herself walking along the muddy riverbank with Lena, the sky a canvas of bruised purples and greys. The water glimmered faintly with the glow of distant lanterns, a spectral procession bobbing gently in the dusk. "Do you really think the curse is real?" Lena asked, her voice low, eyes scanning the quiet water. Ada hesitated, her gaze fixed on the shimmering lights. "I don't know what to believe anymore, but something's wrong. The lanterns are disappearing, and Mara, she's getting worse." Lena reached out, squeezing Ada's hand reassuringly. "Whatever happens, you're not alone. We'll figure this out together." The words offered a fragile comfort against the encroaching darkness. Back at the house, as night fell, Elias stood at the river's edge, the cold water lapping at his boots. The cursed light flickered on the surface, casting ghostly reflections that danced like restless souls. He closed his eyes, chanting the old prayers his father had taught him, hands trembling just beneath the surface of resolve. "Please," he whispered, "let this end." The river answered only with silence, the weight of the curse pressing heavier than ever. As the family grappled with their fractures and fears, an uneasy storm gathered both in the sky and in their hearts. The river's glow promised no peace, only the relentless march of a curse that demanded a terrible price, and the price was rising. The night was thick with mist when Ada slipped out of the house, the faint scent of rain lingering in the air. Her footsteps were muffled by the damp earth as she made her way toward the river, guided by the soft, ghostly glow of the lanterns bobbing on the water's surface. Each flickering light seemed alive, as if pulsing with the trapped souls beneath the river's surface. The family's home, usually a refuge of quiet routine and whispered prayers, felt distant and fragile behind her. Ada's heart thrummed, not with fear but a strange mixture of curiosity and dread. The river called to her an ancient voice she had tried to ignore, yet could never truly resist. She remembered the stories Elias had tried to shield her from, the warnings that slipped from his lips like reluctant confessions. Tonight, she needed to know for herself. What was it about the lanterns? Why did the river seem to hold them and her family in its cold, unyielding grasp? As she reached the riverbank, the cold air kissed her skin with a biting chill. The water, dark and restless, reflected the flickering lanterns that drifted silently, their light casting strange shadows on the tangled branches that clawed at the sky. The whispers, barely audible at first, grew louder, weaving through the rustling leaves and the gentle lapping of the water. Ada strained her ears, catching fragments of voices, some pleading, others filled with sorrow or rage. Suddenly, the water before her rippled unnaturally. A shape emerged, pale and faint, as if woven from mist and moonlight. It was a figure waterlogged and translucent with glowing eyes that pierced the darkness, the drowned. Ada froze, her breath caught in her throat as the spirit drifted closer, its form flickering like the lanterns that tethered it to this world. The cold seemed to seep from the figure, wrapping around Ada's limbs like icy chains. Her toes curled in the mud, the chill biting deep, but she did not retreat. Instead, her eyes locked onto those glowing orbs, searching for meaning, for mercy, for a way to end the endless torment. The figure's lips parted, and a whisper seeped through the night, "Return what was taken." The words echoed in her mind, heavy with unspoken threats, ancient pain, and a demand for restitution. Ada stumbled back, breaking the spectral gaze, her heart pounding wildly in her chest. The lanterns flickered erratically, their light dancing madly across the water's surface. She turned and fled, branches snapping underfoot, the whispers chasing her into the night. Back at the house, Elias sat at the kitchen table, the soft glow of a single candle casting long shadows across his weathered face. His eyes were fixed on the river beyond the window, where the lanterns glowed faintly in the distance. His fingers clenched around a worn wooden charm, a talisman passed down through generations, imbued with protective blessings and desperate hopes. He had sensed her absence, the restless pull that had drawn Ada to the water's edge. His heart clenched with a mixture of fear and fierce protectiveness. The curse was no longer a distant threat, it was closing in, clawing at the edges of their fragile peace. Elias whispered under his breath, a prayer for strength and forgiveness. The river's cold embrace was tightening, and soon the family would have to face the darkness lurking beneath its surface. But for Ada, the encounter marked a turning point, a resolve forged in terror and illuminated by cursed light. She would confront the river, the curse, and the drowned souls, no matter the cost. The night deepened, and the lanterns on the hollow river flickered with restless light, as if warning of the trials yet to come. And in the quiet house, a family braced against the rising tide of dread, bound by blood, guilt, and an ancient debt they could no longer ignore. But the river waits for none, and its cold embrace is patient. Ada's footsteps faded into the distance, but the haunting glow of the lanterns remained an unyielding reminder that some debts are paid only in sacrifice. As the moon dipped behind a veil of clouds, A chill wind whispered through the trees, carrying with it the faintest echo of a promise. The river is watching, and it will not forget. And somewhere, beneath the dark waters, eyes glowed with an unholy light, waiting for the family to answer the call. The river's cold embrace was only beginning. Night fell over the hollow river with a weight that seemed to press down on the very bones of the small fisherman's cottage. Inside, the air was thick with an unspoken tension. The fragile quiet punctuated only by the crackle of the dying hearth fire and the faint, haunting whispers drifting through the cracked windows. Mara sat huddled near the hearth, her pale hands clutching a worn shawl tightly around her thin shoulders. Her soft features, once full of hope, were now drawn and tired, shadows deepening under her eyes like the dark river outside. The wind picked up, sweeping through the skeletal trees and carrying with it a faint susurrus that sounded eerily like voices whispers from the drowned, murmuring just beyond the threshold of the living world. Elias watched her from across the room, his weathered face etched with lines of worry and exhaustion. He was a man burdened by an ancient duty, stoic yet visibly faltering beneath the weight of ancestral guilt. His deep-set eyes, usually steady and guarded, reflected a storm of fear and helplessness. Each night, the river seemed to grow colder, its cursed light flickering more wildly as if warning of the darkness creeping closer to their home. He clenched his fists, fighting back the urge to scream into the void, to demand reprieve from the relentless torment that had gripped his family. Ada sat silently in the corner, her slender frame tense as she tried to steady her racing heart. The nightmares had become unbearable visions of shadowy figures emerging from the water, glowing eyes burning with unyielding sorrow and rage. Just the night before, she had awoken gasping. The image of a drowned woman's face pressed against her window burned into her mind. The ghostly lanterns bobbed on the river's surface outside, casting a sickly glow that seemed to seep into her very bones. "Mother," she whispered softly, reaching out to the frail figure by the fire. But Mara's eyes remained closed, her breath shallow and uneven. As the house settled into the long hours before dawn, Elias found himself restless, unable to sleep despite the exhaustion that tugged at his eyelids. He rose quietly and moved to the riverbank, the cold night air biting at his skin. The river stretched out before him, black and endless, its surface dotted with the eerie lanterns of the drowned. He held one of the lanterns in his hands, a fragile vessel of cursed light, and, with a heavy heart, cast it into the dark water. The faint glow wavered like a heartbeat beneath the surface, then disappeared into the depths. He whispered a prayer, not for salvation, but for strength to endure what was to come. Back in the cottage, the night deepened its hold. Ada's dreams were invaded again, this time by the unmistakable sound of splashing water and urgent whispers calling her name. She awoke to find the room cold and the faintest outline of a figure standing just beyond the window. Her breath caught in her throat as the glowing eyes of a drowned soul met hers, flickering like the cursed lanterns themselves before vanishing into the night. The terror rooted her in place, but beneath it stirred a fierce determination. She would not let this curse consume them all. Morning brought little respite. Mara's condition had worsened. Her frailty was no longer hidden by the dim light of the hearth. Elias and Ada exchanged worried glances as they prepared a meager breakfast, the silence between them heavy with unsaid fears. The village beyond seemed to hold its breath as well, the usual sounds of daily life muted and subdued under the shadow of the cursed river. Throughout the day, the family was haunted by fleeting glimpses of the drowned ghostly reflections in the water. Distant echoes of laughter and cries carried on the wind. The line between the living and the dead blurred, the cursed light flickering like a dying pulse, threatening to snuff out the fragile peace they clung to. Elias's attempts to perform the quiet rituals that once brought comfort felt hollow, each gesture weighed down by the knowledge that the curse was tightening its grip. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the oppressive tension mounted. Mara's breath grew more labored. Ada's resolve hardened. Elias, burdened and weary, sensed the breaking point approaching. The house, the river, and the cursed lanterns seemed to conspire in a silent countdown to a reckoning. The night stretched on, dark and endless, carrying with it the promise of more haunted nights to come. The family stood on the edge of despair, caught between the cold embrace of the river and the faint, flickering hope that they might yet survive the curse that bound them. And as the lanterns bobbed on the water, restless and unyielding, the question lingered in the heavy air. How long could they endure before the drowned claimed what was theirs? The river whispered, and the night answered. The heavy wooden door creaked shut behind Jeb, the sound echoing through the small kitchen like a gunshot in the stillness. Elias stood by the window, his gaze fixed on the river's dark silhouette. But he didn't turn as his brother's footsteps approached. The air between them thickened, charged with years of unspoken grievances and recent fears. "You're chasing ghosts, Elias," Jeb said, his voice low but sharp, slicing through the quiet. "This curse you cling to, it's killing us. It's tearing the family apart." Elias finally turned, his weathered face drawn tight with exhaustion, eyes reflecting the flickering candlelight. "It's not a ghost, Jeb. It's real. We've seen what happens when the lanterns go missing. The drowned don't forgive." Jeb scoffed, running a hand through his tangled hair. "You and your cursed rituals, always looking to blame something unseen. You're scared, and it's making you blind." Mara sat nearby, pale and fragile, clutching a thin shawl around her shoulders. Her tired eyes darted anxiously between the two men, heart aching as the familiar tension rose once more. Ada stood just inside the doorway, her slender frame tense. The flickering candle flames cast a dancing glow on her dark hair, mirroring the turmoil inside her. She wanted to step forward to bridge the rift, but words caught in her throat. "This isn't about fear, Jeb," Elias said, stepping closer, voice harder now. "It's about protecting what's left of our family. If we don't honor the river, the drowned will come for us all. And if you keep living in this nightmare," Jeb replied, voice rising, "you'll lose us anyway. I'm done with this. I'm done with you dragging us down." The words hung heavy, a sharp blade cutting through the fragile bonds holding them together. Jeb's eyes flashed with anger as he turned on his heel and stormed out, the door slamming behind him. Ada's heart pounded. The man she once admired was now a stranger, a symbol of the division threatening to consume them. She pressed her palms to the cool wood of the door, feeling the weight of his absence like a physical wound. Mara's soft voice broke the silence. "Elias, please, we can't let this tear us apart. Not now." He sank into a chair, his hands trembling as he rubbed his face. "I'm trying, Mara, but with every lantern that goes missing, with every restless night, it feels like the river is pulling us deeper into the dark." Ada slipped out of the house, the chill of the evening air wrapping around her like a shroud. The river called to her, its surface dotted with the glowing lanterns of lost souls, drifting silently in the gathering dusk. She stepped onto the worn wooden dock, the boards creaking beneath her feet. The lanterns bobbed gently, their cursed light flickering uncertainly, as if reflecting her own conflicted heart. Questions swirled in her mind. Was Jeb right to reject the curse as superstition? Or was Elias's fear grounded in something far more real and terrifying? Behind her, the faint sound of the river's whispering mingled with the rustling leaves, a haunting melody that promised both danger and revelation. She closed her eyes, breathing deeply the damp, earthy scent of the water, and resolved to find the truth no matter the cost. But even as determination steeled her nerves, a cold shiver ran down her spine. The curse was tightening its grip, and fractures in the family's foundation threatened to let the darkness seep through. Back inside, Mara sat alone in the dim light, her frail hands folded tightly in her lap. The shadows seemed to press closer, the weight of loss and fear suffocating her. Whispered prayers spilled from her lips, desperate pleas for mercy in a world unraveling around them. Outside, the river's cursed lanterns flickered once more, their ghostly glow a reminder that some bonds, no matter how broken, could never be escaped. As the night deepened, the family's fractures grew more pronounced, setting the stage for a reckoning that would test their loyalty, courage, and the very limits of their hope. Ada's quiet resolve burned like a fragile flame against the encroaching darkness. But the question lingered: could it survive the storm to come? The river waited, patient and relentless, its depths reflecting the fractured souls tethered to its cursed light.